Hey, this is me building a $3 million a year business in public. The way these videos go is I always start by doing some YouTube comment Q&A. This just delivers value and helps me grow my channel through comment engagement. Then, speaking of growth, we do stats for YouTube, Instagram, and then all of my products. Then finally, I do daily business improvement. Right now, I'm doing some Maker School exclusives. Maker School is my community that I run. There's 2,800 members right now and makes over $300,000 with a churn that I am trying to reduce. This is my main channel over here, and then this is my daily updates channel. Just going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and start answering some questions. So let's see what the oldest question is. Omar says, thanks for all you do, Nick. Oh, no. David D.O. says, when you increase prices in your school community, you also make existing members pay more at the next billing cycle. Is there a setting for that? If you don't, that'd be a great thing to mention in the description, like lock in your price forever. Saw it in another community, was surprised. Yeah, it's locked. So you pay the same thing that you pay on day one all the way until, you decide to leave the community or the community I don't know, like whatever happens with communities in general, you will always be paying the exact same price in perpetuity. That's basically the business model, right? You try and build a little bit of scarcity because you say, if you don't get in now, you don't lock in with the same price. You also reduce churn because you say, well, if you leave and you want to come back, you have to do so at a higher price point. So that's the whole business model. I see Omar left a bunch of the same messages, so just going to do one of them. He says, one, I've started my agency, or rather my cold email campaign 10 days ago after months of binging your videos. And through these 10 days, my campaign was having weird dips in replies. So in the beginning, it was booming. Then they started bouncing. Do you know anything about this? Could you advise me on this? P.S. I got a warning message that said too many emails were bouncing. We should pause campaign. So the reason why this is happening, the reason why you had like pretty good performance is because most of your emails were probably delivering. And then you had some fundamental error or strategic misconfiguration or whatever that resulted in your deliverability decreasing over time. Because that deliverability was decreasing over time, it tends to nosedive because fewer of your emails make it in, more of them are marked as spam, more people mark them as spam, and just sort of like this positive feedback loop. The reason why all of this is occurring is just because most of the emails that you are sending to, or a big chunk of the emails that you're sending to, either had pretty crappy copy, and so as a result, people marked you as spam, which decreased your deliverability and then got you in that vicious cycle that I was talking about, or you were just sending to a crappy list in the first place. The quality of your list is much debated. A lot of people, though, nowadays use some sort of email validation tool. So they will take the list that they were planning on sending, so joeschmo@gmail.com, validate using mails.so, which will check a bunch of DNS records and do a bunch of things, and then basically return, if I just refresh this page here, some sort of deliverability score. And then you can set a cutoff and say, if it's greater than 50% deliverable, then I will send. And if it's less than 50% deliverable, you'll just remove it directly, completely from your outgoing sequence. So by doing it this way, you're basically just cutting out all of the bounces and then significantly improving your deliverability and campaign health. Obviously at the cost of, one, literal cost, because you have to pay more to mails.so or another provider. And then two, time, because you can't just whip up a campaign, get up and running really quick. And then three, leads, because sometimes the end total number of leads you get after a good validation is like 30% of the leads that you fed in. So that's number one. Number two, at 10 days, nice. I had my first sales meeting ever. I know sales is a skill which I don't have yet. Do you have any videos, or can you please make one on the sales meeting itself, how to close the client, what I can do to help me have more chances of closing them, like preparing a Loom video or document for them? As today, I failed miserably in my meeting. Thanks again. I will say this is more or less what I do Maker School for. It's all about like lead generation and then the actual sale. So inside of Maker School, we have an automation agency skeleton where I run through what a sales call looks like. I show you guys how to do a high quality sales call. I give you bullet points on the way that I do them and so on and so forth. And then I also talk all about how to do things like kickoff calls and so on. So, I don't gatekeep like automation knowledge or anything like that. I do all the builds live, but if you want like sales help, definitely check out Maker School for that. Otherwise, just to give you some brief bullet points in the spirit of the question, do some sort of expectation, or let's call it frame setting at the beginning of the call. I'm doing rainbow text, which is why I look like this. That just means, hey, just want to make sure that we're both on the same page in terms of time. I don't go over or anything like that. I imagine you probably have a hard stop in 30 minutes. Yeah, you do? Okay, great. Here are how these calls normally go. I'll start by just asking you a couple of questions about like how, why you responded to my outreach, because I'm sure you get a lot of these on a daily basis. Then I'm just going to ask you a couple additional questions about your business. And then finally, I'll tell you how I might be able to fix the problem that you're having. And then I want you to walk away with something. So I'm actually going to whip up a document or an asset or a template and actually give it to you for free by the end of the call. How's that sound? All good to go? Great. Awesome. And then we proceed. After you're done with that, then you just proceed down the stack of the frame that you just set. So you do basically like why me and why now. After that, you do some sort of, I call it a customer audit. I don't have steps for these. But basically, okay, great. Now run me through your current customer acquisition process, fulfillment process, onboarding process, client management process, HR process, etc. After they do that, then finally you talk about your solution. And then I personally just like to send them a proposal that contains all the scope information. I don't actually like dealing with objections or doing hard sales on the call. This is coming from somebody who used to do a lot of hard sales way back in the day, so I just prefer not to do it these days. So yeah, I see a lot of these questions. I'm just going to remove these because I imagine a lot of people are going to see them and wonder why I'm not responding. Ahmed says, 1924, thank you for being transparent. What kills us as beginners isn't the lack of knowledge, it's assuming that everything should be perfect and its place is a requirement for success. Thank you again for sharing your daily updates. 1946. Omar said, hi again, Nick. I'd appreciate it if you could rate my cold email draft. I sent it to your email. Subject is YouTube comment. Thanks. I feel like I did, though. No, I got to be honest. I have a ton of emails. I feel like I did. If I didn't do it, please send it over again. But just because I answered two of your questions before, I'm just going to skip over this one for time reasons. And also, I think I have some stuff in my mailbox I don't necessarily want to show you guys right now. Yo, Nick, I'm guessing you probably track how well your YouTube videos convert to paid school members, but do you track which video or link specifically brought them in? If so, I'd love to hear how you do it. No, I don't, unfortunately. I'd love to have more granular tracking on this, but RevTrack and these other attribution tools don't actually have ways to track that sort of stuff. So I don't know which ones are converting. I know which ones get clicks, obviously, but I don't know which ones are converting. I wish I had. It's probably not a common thing in the US or Canada, but if you could find out about cold WhatsApp DMs and how effective that is. Everybody uses WhatsApp more than iMessage outside of the US and Canada because Android is the go-to smartphones that people have. Yeah, cold WhatsApp DMs actually work pretty well. One of the very first wins in my community to make money with Make was from cold WhatsApp DMing. I think it was a guy Dylan or David or something like that way back in the day. I'm not sure if he's still part of the community now. It was almost over a year ago, I think. It's more or less the exact same thing as any sort of cold outbound outreach. It's just you need a data source to scrape to start with. So I don't exactly know. It depends on obviously the sort of lead that you are targeting, but a lot of them include phone numbers. What you can do is you can just very quickly run all those phone numbers through some sort of WhatsApp validation, see if they're on WhatsApp. If they are, filter that down to a subset of numbers that are WhatsApp only, and then just send all those WhatsApps. You ever notice how Nick uses a social prompt at the beginning of each video? We're living inside of a GPT. I don't know. Good question. Alexander says, can retainers be automated with Stripe subscriptions? If yes, how do we handle ad hoc overtime hours, separate invoice? Yeah, for sure. I automate most of my Stripe subscriptions. The way I handle ad hoc overtime hours is just billing automatically. So charging their card without sending them an invoice. And then inside of Stripe, when you do this, there will be a feature that will allow you to just take money out of their card. The way that I will do it is in any sort of retainer agreement, I will set expectations and frame at the beginning that, hey, any ad hoc overtime hours will be automatically billed by the end of the month. I'll make sure to confirm with you anytime we go over, just to make sure that we're both on the same page. And I just do all this for convenience. And if you frame it as a convenience thing, clients are much more likely to be down. Obviously, if they are more likely to be down, you do have a lot of power that you need to be careful with. With great power comes great responsibility, and so on and so forth. Harshit gives me some hearts. Thank you, man. And Q Hunter says, Nick, I think I'm struggling with analysis paralysis. I've set up my website and everything for my business necessary to start getting clients and doing work. I just get stuck at the beginning of the outreach phase. Not sure if it's because arguably the hardest part of running any business. What is your advice to begin outreach or lead gen? Well, it's difficult to know exactly where you're at in terms of setting all this stuff up, just because I don't have that context. But if you haven't already set up everything that allows you to just press go, then do it. Okay. This still isn't outreach. So that part of your brain that is scared of putting yourself in front of customers should still be okay. So set up an Upwork profile, set up, cold email, set up a bunch of community posts ready to go, set everything up and just be at the start line. And then what you do is just one day you send one and that's it. You try not to do any more than one. The next day you send two. And the next day you send three, and so on and so on and so forth. You sending one per day is a very different equation to that kind of limbic part of your brain that's scared of doing this than you sending like 20 or 30 or 40 a day. And so you'll be able to do one per day. And if you just scale it up slowly but surely, similar to the analogy that I used of the woman that was trying to pick up a running habit, running 1 day today, 2 days, 1 minute today, 2 minutes tomorrow, 3 minutes on the third day, and so on and so forth. You'll eventually be in a point where you're capable of delivering consistent daily outreach, which is really all that matters. Hey, Nick, once we're on a call, says Anas, how would you go about explaining the cost of tools running an automation like a lead gen automation? I tell the quote, which is EG 1700, but if they want to send 20K emails, how would I explain to them in a manner that would not make it seem costly, like the cost that they have to pay are going to be another $500 or $600 for tools and API credits in order to run the system? How would you tackle this on the call? So 20,000 emails in a month for $600, is that accurate? I don't think it is. Because 20,000 emails, 20,000 leads, let's say, is not $600. Using Appify credits, assuming it's just $1 per 1,000, that's $20. So assuming that you do, let's see here, hypergrowth plan, that's 97. So that's 117. Assuming that you do 20,000 emails, that's 26 sending days, 700 emails per day, about 30 days, 25 mailboxes times, so let's say $4 a mailbox. Right now it's $100. So it's 100 plus 117. The cost of them should actually be somewhere in the neighborhood of like $200 to $300, assuming that you also do some sort of personalization or icebreaker. Okay. So it's not actually as much money as you're saying, first of all. Second of all, the way that you do this is you extrapolate the return, the perceived return on investment, the estimated ROI, basically the expected value of working with you. And you have the client walk through that with you. You say, okay, great. So how much is, an average client worth to you? $2,000. Okay. How many of them on average give you a referral to another client? Oh, maybe like one in every two. Okay, cool. How many of them do you upsell on some other service afterwards? Okay. And then how many months do they normally stay with you? Okay, 3 months. So it's like, if it's $2,000 average order value, they they stay with them for 3 months. That's $6,000 lifetime value. If on average 50% of them refer somebody that's of equivalent value, then you multiply 6,000 by 1.5, so you get 9,000. If you know that some of them do some other upsell or cross sell, then you add that, and then you say, okay, great. So the total lifetime value of a single customer is about $10,000. Assuming I can get that to you this month, I'll be adding about $10,000 in value based off of all the numbers that we talked about and the outreach volume that we're looking at and the numbers that, we chatted. A very conservative estimate is something like 2 to 3 per month. 2 to 3 is between $20,000 to $30,000. In order to run the cold email side of things, the infrastructure cost, there's a very minor ongoing recurring payment that you make to the platforms that you don't make to me at all, just pass through credits of about $200, which is about 1% of that margin. And then there's a management fee that I take, which is X dollars, which is, another small little percentage of that margin, 17% or something. And then everything else is just profit for you or gross for you or whatever you want to call it. I guess the point I'm making is once you build up enough value, it doesn't really matter what the costs of these ongoing managements, the tools, costs, and so on and so forth for the ongoing management is, because it's just such a small little percentage of the total value of the thing that you are doing. So shouldn't really be a big deal. David says, what do you think of Lindy? Is it something you could recommend? I've used Lindy a couple of times, and I have a meeting with Flo, the CEO, again sometime this week. It's really cool. I haven't used it to build like flows for clients yet. I think the reason why I'm a little hesitant is just because they take the input and the output and they feed it all into AI and have AI basically just do like agentic stuff at every node. And because I think of that flexibility, I'm just a little hesitant right now to like roll it out entirely to a client. You don't have to do it that way, but I think that's how Flow and that's how, the whole Lindy system is set up to encourage you to do it with. So I'm just a little bit hesitant to give a functioning client funnel the Lindy treatment, if that makes sense, because the percentage downside impact is really big, I would say, to like the value of the most of my client funnels. If I had to, be precise here, that's probably why I haven't used it yet. Also, it is obviously another tool that I have to learn and so on and so forth. Okay, cool. We'll just do some really quick brand stats. It's looking like the main channel has grown to 137.24, which is 1,148. So we're back up to a 0.84. And then the blast up is showing 216,207 with the daily updates at 6,865, which is looking pretty chunky. So it looks like growth wise, we're doing pretty well. So we saw yesterday, we got down to 0.46. Now we're back up to 0.84. This is 0.61. Now we're back up to 1. 0.59. Now we're back up to 0.81. If I go back into my dashboard and then check out the analytics tab, we get kind of a different story. Okay, subs are down for sure. We had a couple of days where they were over 1,000 again, and now they seem to be averaging out somewhere between like the maybe 800 to 700 to 800 range. I've been publishing a little bit more consistently. Hasn't been perfect, as you see here. We did this one on the 16th. This one was on the 17th. This one really should have been on the 15th so that we could have had the consistent daily publishing flow where it's like, 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th, 15th, 17th. But we just had a a little fire in the middle of the night that we needed to deal with. And so it resulted in us, unfortunately, not being able to get it out on time. Still, good performance on the N8N Ultimate course, 8 hours. Good performance on the graphic designer flow. The LinkedIn Parasite flow is doing disproportionately well, given the fact that this is published just 2 days ago, and it has almost as many views as this one, which is published a whole 7 days ago. Looks like the smart invoice system that only makes you $750 a month is obviously lagging, and that's understandable. But yeah, suffice to say, things are going reasonably well. So yeah, the big issue here is the Maker School churn, which is now at 23.54%. Just keeping in mind, again, that we started at 17, a rise to 23.54 from my lowest to now my highest. This is the highest churn on record. Puts me at something like 6.5%. So I've increased my churn by 6.5%, which just expressed as a percentage of the total amount of money that I would make with this is a lot. I mean, it's many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so this number here was at 307,000 yesterday, I believe. And now we're down to 305,000, which represents a loss of about 2,000. So very much at that top part that I was telling you about. Okay, and now we seem to be on the way down. I think I gave us a couple of potential outcomes here. If I manage to solve the churn problem and then the increase in daily publishing volume works and it does what I'm expecting it to do, and if I create a new month 1 of Maker School and start getting back to increasing the value, or rather changing the modules to better reflect like the new lead scraping flows and stuff like that, this is sort of like option 1, or let's just call it outcome 1. In which case I slowly reverse that trend and then I continue growing slowly but surely and gradually. Outcome number 2 is basically what we have down below, which is sort of what we're seeing right now, which is that, I can't really fight against that churn. And so the community just slowly decreases in size until we're down to some level of, let's go over here, some level of like core subscribers. And so we sort of plateau out at a percentage of whatever the current size is. And then outcome 3, which is sort of down here, I would say, is that there is just some catastrophic loss of trust or faith in communities in general, or there's just such an influx of other communities that are like mine that, MRR just tanks and we just lose a big chunk of our members. I think outcome 1 or outcome 2 are probably equally likely. Outcome 3 is probably not very likely. So I'd maybe assign outcome 1 a 30% probability. Maybe I'd assign outcome 2 like a 50% probability, maybe 30% up here, 50% over here. And then here, it'd be like 10%. And then there'd be like a range of possible outcomes in between these two. You know what I mean? So if I could, I don't know, map the probability space or some other nerdy shit like that, that's what I'm thinking. Anyway, that's it for today. If you guys want to join Maker School and help me get back to option 1, definitely do so. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching and I'll catch you all tomorrow.